Hi everybody, thanks for joining us for this webinar on the rise of autonomous mobility and its role in the new normal era. I'm Graham Neal, I'm editor of Smart Cities World, and I'm excited about this. It's a fascinating subject today, and crucially it's one that dives into the realities of autonomous mobility rather than the science fiction cliches behind it. Really, if you think about COVID-19, the changes it's making to all of our lives, big part of that is how humans and things are transported. Already, we're seeing a rise in the use of drones by the likes of the National Health Service here in the UK, also the likes of Amazon. There is an exciting variety of use cases being used today or about to be rolled out in the coming months and years. So to discuss this issue and more, I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Ni Zhu, IoT Solution Manager, IoT Consultant at China Mobile International UK. Also joining us for a panel discussion after Ni's presentation is David Webb, Head of Innovation at the Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles in the UK. Now we'll have time for a short question and answer session after the panel discussion. Please submit any questions you may have using the Q&A functionality that I'm sure you're familiar with by now. The presentation's also going to be made available after the event, so don't worry if there's any particular bits that you miss. So thank you very much, and over to you, Ni.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm going to share my screen. I'm Ni from China Mobile International UK. Welcome to this webinar. Hope everyone is keeping very well in these special days. A little bit a lightning speed introduction of myself. I've been working on Internet of Things, AI, advanced digital technologies for digital transformation over 10 years. Delivered several multi-million pounds innovative projects, including smart cities, smart home for healthcare, intelligent infrastructure, CAVE, connected and autonomous vehicle, mobility as a service, and so on. So today, we would like to share our vision and experience on autonomous mobility and how it engages our new normal in these pandemics, as well as the post-world. So today, first, we're gonna scan the changing role and the importance of autonomous mobility in the new normal era, and how the advanced technologies are responding those changes. We're gonna show some case studies, including unarmed delivery surveillance, self-driving, especially empowered by autonomous drones, vehicles, robotics. We're also going to talk about the managing and operating autonomous mobility applications within a wide smart city platform. Finally, we're going to have a panel discussion with our guest speaker and a Q&A. So, emerging technologies are reshaping our daily living and work, where traveling is not an exception. If you had a new car within the last couple of years, you may realize that you can park your car automatically, and you can use unsupervised driving system in the highways. You may play in drones with your keys and let drones follow you, track you, film you without a self-stick. It is the sign that autonomous mobility is working into our daily living. As one of the most expected emerging markets before pandemics, autonomous mobility is driven by both transformed businesses and cutting-edge technology trends. From the milestone against the timeline on the right, leading vehicle enterprises and the smart cities are reinventing their core businesses and services towards autonomous mobility. in order to gain a competitive advantages in this domain. It is the well-known Gartner curve for emerging technologies 2019. Well, exactly before COVID-19. We can see autonomous driving level 5 is almost reaching the expectation peak. Well, level 4 is even closer to us. Well, actually, many terms in that chart are the technologies underpinning autonomous mobility. We will mention some later on. So there's no denying our world has faced perhaps no greater challenging than it does today, this year, well, at least in my generation till now. Many news like COVID-19 contracted cases in the crowded working environment like Amazon frontline workers in the news, short of hospitalization and healthcare sources, disconnected and reduced the transportation and the deliveries. Well, we saw a lot in the news. They had been, well, I have to say, and they still have been major challenges to everyone. But we all know challenges is also opportunity. It's a catalyst and accelerators of transformation. We believe autonomous mobility is about to respond to those challenges. For example, NHS already started the trial drones to deliver tests and equipment. Based on the ABI research, ABI research estimated that the drone market will upscale because of COVID-19. Then how? How to respond to those challenges? From our best suggestion, is exactly from the root, from the real needs. How we use autonomous delivery to replace manpowered logistics in the anti-crowded working environment like a warehouse. To tackle source-constrained hospitalization, can we use autonomous robotics to decrease exposure in the quarantine areas? For example, when delivering personal protective equipment or medicines. Can we offer contactless auto surveillance in the public place? Can we apply autonomous mobility to offer ambient assisted living for isolated or elder people? We need a touch-free delivery service. We need a self-service world. So, well, the vision is clear and always beautiful. Let's investigate a little bit what are the key technologies should be involved to implement it. Here is a rough involving roadmap of autonomous mobility. We hear a lot about self-driving cars, which is a standalone intelligence from level 1 to level 5. The self-driving car is used in quite different scenarios. It needs connectivity to exchange rich information with the rest of the world. There are many connected and autonomous vehicle research and development projects funded. Unavoidably, the vehicle is running on the road and in the highways, in the cities. It must interact with infrastructure, other cars, cyclists, even data center cloud, so-called vehicle to everything. Well, to be honest, we eventually expect an integrated, customized, and autonomous mobility service from point A to point B, so-called mobility as a service. So the leading countries like USA, like Europe, UK, China, they all sketch the blueprints, strategies, roadmaps of future mobility. I listed several published documents. If you are interested in, you may dig into the details. Especially in the UK, just recently, probably last month, and then they could just publish the UK connected and automate mobility roadmap to 2030. Well, they're quite high level. Speaking about the key technologies, more specifically, from my personal point of view, there are 4 major parts. We use the Internet of Things to gather the real-time data from the physical world and sensing from LiDAR, radar, RGB depth camera, vision data, and GNSS, ambient environment, even wearable device worn by the driver or passengers. Well, as well as digital twins. Each AV, autonomous vehicle, can generate a terabytes level data per day or even per hours. And it is too challenging to forward all raw data to the backend, to say cloud or intelligence center for processing. Thus, we are leverage edge computing to gain distributed processing capabilities, handle the raw data on-site, use so-called edge mining or fog mining or edge AI to do critical decision. We still need to forward the key data, key features or information to the backend and interact with the central intelligence center. We need ubiquitous network connectivity, edge to cloud synchronization, and zero latency communication, where 5G is played a key role here. You may hear the term called cellular vehicle to everything. That's it. And the most core part is the brain of the whole system, AI, which is where the intelligence comes from. We need to trust the AI to provide a proactive service. So of course, there are other essential techs like cybersecurity, big data management, actual. So I didn't list it here. So talk a lot about technology. So let's have a look at what's the real case study in the real world. Well, the first one, back to early this year, when the first city were locked down in the world, Jingdong actually tested their autonomous delivery robots and delivered the material from one delivery center to a hospital. Actually, it's level 4 automations. Actually, that little robot was running on the road. And another one, Alibaba's logistics on China system offer end-to-end autonomous logistics. And actually, you can see from the picture, there's no man in the warehouse. Well, that solution is exactly can solve the problem we just mentioned early on for the Amazon frontline workers. And also, a 5G connected port, or call it a vehicle or port, were tested in a test bed in China, and that can be used. Well, that port has no driver, can be employed in campus, hospital, airport, conference. Well, I still remember when we had a Cave 1, Cave 2 projects funded by Innovate UK. It has a similar framework used by R&D. And well, that was quite hot news recently. The UK space agents helped the NHS to use drone to deliver materials test result from one delivery point to the hospital. that is really my favorite picture here. Well, it's actually a drone fleet. Well, it's also 5G connected drone were used. Actually, can be used in supervising the public places when during the lockdown. Well, you don't need to send your police force to supervise the public place. You can launch the drone. Actually, was used in China to say, "Hey, go home. It's lockdown. We can't gathering together now." Well, that is a comprehensive pie chart, actually quote from autonomous vehicle booklet. Summarize the R&D projects in the UK from all consider all elements in this domain. If you are interested in, you can click the link on the right to dig it more. So they are, well, you can see from the case studies just introduced, almost all of them are R&D prototypes or trials. How to employ them in our daily living? We have to consider how to involve those prototypes to operational level within a wide smart city platform. There's a big gap between prototype POC to a mature products or services in operations mode. Simply owing to comprehensive application scenarios, need to connect the data sets and the trained AI modules under a large number of and quite different situations, which it is unlikely doing this in a real things on the real road. To bridge the gap, the simulation platform were designed for R&D, testing, verification of autonomous mobility products and services. It can largely save the R&D cost, time, and accelerate the productionization progress. So let's have a close look about the simulation system. I copy and place a short video to show what a simulation platform looks like. You can see from the simulation tool, it can build a 3D model. It can do a 3D modeling to simulate high precision virtual scenes. Actually, you can import road network, traffic light, signs, lane lines, traffic flow. Well, it can generate from video to 3D scenes. Probably I'm gonna move it a little bit faster. See, you can mimic the junctions you would like to apply for. And also the traffic flow. Okay, eventually you can generate the 3D themes. Okay, we will share the material to everyone, so you don't need to watch it everything now. Okay. What the simulation platform includes? I actually only showed a teeny part of it, and the platform integrates all factors of what autonomous mobility should be involved, and ranging really complex environment perception, traffic environment simulation, the smart road facility models, the available network communication, how you adopting your own city's transportation systems, how you train your human machine interaction, name some here. When you have roles, also we need to simulate the sensing system of the mobility tools, including like cameras, LiDAR, radar, GPS. Well, also interfacing to connect the kinetics and control systems, offering interactive harsh case training. So to train the autonomous driving algorithms to operational models. Well, you also can set like a daytime, nighttime, mimic foggy, raining, snowing weather. Yeah, I'm gonna move on a little bit. So we have a really light touch of it. Uh, this simulation platform actually is residing in a more comprehensive Internet of Things platform called OneNet, developed by China Mobile. It can smoothly and seamlessly transfer from simulation platform to operation platform within the same underpinned platform. When you launch your products and services, that you don't need to shift your whole your work to another ecosystem. So probably that's everything I would like to share to everyone. So we're gonna have another discussion later on. So I give it back to Grant.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. That was very, very interesting. I think we've talked about before, I guess, about how autonomous mobility, it's about reality needs, I suppose. And you know, some of the examples you were showing there, you know, shows how a lot of different technology really knits together, I guess, you know, to make an autonomous mobility system work. So I was hoping to bring in David Webb, who, as I said at the top of the hour, is Head of Innovation at the Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles in the UK. David, I was wondering, do you have an initial response to Ni's presentation?
Hi, Graham. Thank you, and thanks, Dr. Ni, for his presentation. I think the big thing from me for the presentation is that it just shows the complexity of the challenge coming from our trial autonomous vehicles now through to connected and autonomous vehicles and the complexity that brings, and then through to delivering mobility as a service, where it's not only the vehicle that needs to understand what it's doing, understand its mission, but also the environment around it and how the city needs to change to enable those services. So I thought Dr. Ni did well to bring that complexity through. And the question that I've always got, and it's a stance that we take here in the UK, is that no one country can achieve all of this on its own. We have to work collaboratively and collegiately to achieve this. So looking to partners around the world to how do we do it? Where are the expertise in the various different areas? And one of Dr. Ni's later slides showed like the various different sectors that all need to come together to bring this together, and bring this to fruition. And I think modeling and simulation is going to be a major part of this as we go forward. Everybody knows that there's research out there that talks about billions of miles being driven before you can prove that an AV is safer than a human. Well, if we can do that in the virtual world, and we can take that from the UK to China to America to Australia to Singapore, and we can show that somebody's capability will work in all those locations without having to have taken that vehicle to all of those locations, and we'll be in a much better position. So yeah, definitely key takeaway, really complex, lots of work for us to do, but modeling and simulation is going to be a vital part of it as we go forward.
So just on that then, I mean, what, David, are your thoughts about how different kinds of autonomous vehicles are going to be introduced to a market? Is this something that's purely going to be handled by policy making from that market's government, or will there be other methods that will be needed?
So the policymakers within everybody's government are going to have to make some changes to enable. UK is especially complex in itself. The definition of a driver is very important in UK law, so we're going to have to work on that and make sure that that makes sense. But equally, I think there's a role and responsibility for government to make it clear to the public that there is benefit here, that this change should be, could be, hopefully will be a good thing, and not only through increasing safety, but it also increasing productivity and access to transport and inclusivity of transport. By moving into some of these areas, we're hoping to reach those forgotten areas of rural United Kingdom and bring access to transport back. So yeah, there's definitely, I think each government will need to make sure that it's got a vision for the future of transport in its area, what it wants from the systems, and where it wants to focus those systems initially. Logistics is starting to bubble up. We've got Starship here in the UK. We've got a new company called Cargo that just announced their trials a couple of weeks ago. And then in the States, you've obviously got Amazon, who are doing drones as well as autonomous vehicles, and companies like Neuro as well. And it's like, can we bring those services positively to the public first before we push into passenger transport?
And Dr. Nee, I saw you nodding there whenever David was talking about the importance of the government in helping to facilitate the rolling out of autonomous vehicles. So what are your thoughts about the public sector role, I guess?
Well, to be honest, everyone, all stakeholders in this ecosystem, to be honest, vehicle makers, infrastructure providers, transportation designer and operators, regulators, even investors, researchers. So everyone, even the ones who are not benefited but affected by this, need to consider need to be included in this topic. So it's not the government's their own responsibility only.
So it's like a lot of technology, I guess, a diverse ecosystem that really needs to come together. And one of the organizations that you mentioned there was regulators. This is, as you pointed out, and as David just pointed out, a very complex area. How will a driverless car network be regulated, do you think?
I think the regulator should be both supervisor and a promoter.
Okay. So would they be responsible for running tests? What sort of role do you mean? What do you mean by supporter?
I mean promoter is not the rule maker to say you can do this and you can do that, but need to have a scientific evidence to say yes, you can do this and you cannot do that.
Okay. David, would you agree is a promoter-esque role the best one for a regulator?
Yes, well, to be honest, it is a game change since the current humans traveling behavior was formed. Introducing AV to the market actually is a progress of reshaping people's mobility behavior. It's slowly or speedily, so it's a long way to go, and the responsibility is really blur between the developer and the regulator.
Okay. David, how do you see regulation of this particular area panning out?
So I'd agree with Dr. Nee with what he said there, that there's a combination of work for the regulators and work for the developers. Of we can't just foist this on the public, we have to bring the public along on the journey. We have to convince them that giving up their hard-earned freedom via owning their own vehicles and being able to drive wherever they wish, there is benefit there. And everybody will have seen in the press over the last week or so the announcement that we're going to ban petrol vehicles from 2030 in the UK, and the public uproar about giving up petrol powered cars. Wait until we try and convince them to give up owning a car, full stop. For the regulator, it is that, how do we balance safety, security, bringing that to the public, with innovation? We don't want to stifle innovation. We don't want to pick a solution and say this is the thing that you need to deliver. It is here are the objectives that we're looking to achieve. Here are the safety improvements, the efficiency improvements, the accessibility, etc., as I mentioned earlier. And it is that challenge. It's how do we move things along? How do we change the law? It takes a long time. How do we invest in the right innovative companies without choosing winners? It's a massively complex area, and it's something that we've been working hard as CCAV on for the last 4 years, and it's hopefully something we'll be working on for the next 4 years as we move things forward and bring autonomous vehicles more to the public eye, and start getting to that point where smaller, commercially viable, profitable trials can take place.
And I guess one issue that I think leaps out for any one of us is legal issues. You know, I'm thinking something like liability when it comes to accidents is an obvious example. I mean, it's a very opaque area.
It is, and
how does the sector solve that?
So the UK is a step ahead. We've got the Autonomous and Electric Vehicle Act, which was announced a couple of years ago now, and will be turned into the next thing next year when it becomes, I've got the words wrong, but when it becomes law. And basically that gives us the ability to list a vehicle as an AV. And once your vehicle is listed as an AV, and that doesn't have to be permanent, as in it doesn't have to be 100% AV. It could be an autonomous driving system in a very strict ODD. Once your vehicle is in that mode, if there is an accident, you, the human owner, the human driver, aren't responsible. So that works with the lawyers and with the insurance community to make sure that the liability is not on yourself if you are in a listed vehicle that has an accident. So the UK was the first to push that through. We've been working with the law commissions of England, Wales and Scotland for the last 2 years, and they're just about to launch their third engagement with the public around the laws we need to change and how we change those laws. And they've been covering everything from licensing of what the rest of the world calls robotaxis, all the way through to the definition of the driver and those laws around how the insurers are made comfortable with the risks that they're taking on. So, yeah.
Okay. Dr. Nee, how do you see the autonomous vehicle sector overcoming legal issues?
Okay. Achieving 100% is our researchers and engineers' mission. But to say, well, in reality, how to deal with 99.99% actually is a legal matter. a little bit beyond myself. Yeah.
I guess that just shows you the challenge that is faced with the sector, that obviously taking someone like yourself, you know, who is an expert in this particular field, there are many gray areas. I suppose, you know, David, you said the UK is almost a pioneer, I suppose, in this this area by actually getting to grips with the problem. But no, Dr. D, I guess that shows you the difficulties with dealing with this issue. Is that fair?
Yeah, it is tough. It is definitely quite tough and a long way to go. Because autonomous mobility requires transform the city services, not only the vehicle itself, and also transform the business mode for either a city or national infrastructure. Not only mobility to themselves, but also, for example, like network connectivities, data infrastructure, smart city platform, and the operators and the trust AI. So I do like the term David used, convinced. We need a scientific proof, no matter it's a test result or data set, to prove, to convince everyone, the user, the regulator, the car maker, say it is the right thing, we go forward.
And on that, I mean, both of you have alluded to this, you know, over the past 10 minutes or so, talking about the end user. I mean, how likely, starting with you, Dr. Nee, how likely do you think citizens are to accept these kinds of solutions? Because these are big changes to us, after all.
It is. Safety is on the top of user acceptance in this case, I think. Well, I remember one sentence that say, may your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. I think who said Nelson Mandela? Probably, yeah. So it's safety is on the top, and also user comfort, user experience, and usability. That's a lot. That's a lot to be accepted by the major part of the user.
And David, you talked about the uproar about the end of petrol cars here in the UK. This goes a little bit of a step further than phasing out petrol cars. How much of a problem is encouraging citizens to accept these kinds of solutions and the benefits they will bring?
And I think, and it alludes to where we were earlier about some of the services and the opportunities that are here sooner within the next 5 years, autonomous logistics, and how that helps and how that benefits, and you can show people the benefits of those. I mean, there's very few people who've not looked out at their street on any given day and seen 7 different Amazon vans come. And it's like, well, actually, with some coordination, we can improve that, and we can improve things. You can get your deliveries easier, so we can do those steps. And then through the logs, we can turn to passenger transport, where it's adding to and benefiting mass transit. So how do we get it easier so that some people, especially if you took London, for example, certain areas of London are quite transport poor. And it's like, oh, to get to central London, I have to take 2 buses, 2 tubes, and then I'm there. Whereas actually, how do you help that? How do we add to that mass transit with those systems? And then after all that hard work and all that good work where people are seeing it more and more, then you can start talking about reducing car ownership and reducing the use of your own private car. And not only do within CCAV do we have a CAV program, we also have a future of transport program where it is very much focused on those Department for Transport aspirations for 10, 20, 30 years in the future of how do we continue to develop transport. And that's not forgetting mass transport and active transport, that's just enhancing it and making it more accessible and more affordable.
I mean that's a good point, I guess, because we've been talking about smart city singular, but obviously it's smart cities plural. You know, where we all live, how they interconnect to one another, and you know, with something like mobility, that's going to be key. David, how simple do you think it's going to be to build an autonomous vehicle system outwards from a city, you know, with the goal of creating ultimately a national infrastructure, you know, handling mass transport, like you just said?
So it's about the right system or the right service for the requirement. So trains are fantastic at delivering the service that they can, and replacing trains with lots of autonomous vehicles that whiz along the motorway probably isn't the right solution. But there are areas where actually bringing those services together is could be beneficial. And I think through that stepping stone process, we are going to see lots of smaller distance options be autonomous rather than longer distance. But then I'll jump back to the logistics and go to HGVs. I mean, some are certainly here in the UK with the HGV, out in the States and in Australia, where they do a lot further distances in big heavy vehicles. Like, how do you benefit that? How do you automate that? And some of that is about making it work with the rail system, and some of that is making it work with autonomous systems and less reliance on human drivers. So it's all, there's no one like, this is what we're going to do in 2030 and this is the solution. It's like, here are all the different areas that we need to step forward and bring forward, and then 2030 plus we'll start seeing some really good benefits from the investment.
That's interesting. Dr. Nee, what do you think? Is it maybe a bad analogy to use when we're talking vehicles, but the case of walking before we can run with the likes of a national infrastructure? Isn't not as simple as you may imagine in terms of deploying that national infrastructure?
Well, yes. To be honest, well, we mentioned a lot about the vehicle itself, so we can't ignore the national infrastructures like highways, like traffic lighting and traffic signaling system. That because it's another key way to improve the security and reliability. So need to be ready even before the autonomous vehicle can be legally running on the road with your hand free.
Okay, I'm going to open this up to the Q&A. We have plenty of questions already, which is fantastic. I guess the first one for you, Dr. Nee, is I guess, do you think there's a question of ethics regarding how these solutions could be used?
Wow, that's a really good question and a really good angle to think about this. Yes, novelty might not be accepted by everyone, to be honest, and even not a benefit to everyone, especially during this mobility, autonomous mobility early stages. We shouldn't ignore the interference it brings to the group of people who are not willing to accept autonomous mobility. So ethic consideration need to be the key term is inclusive. Yeah, and needed to think about how these new things benefit that group of people, but also bring negative to another group.
David, what are your thoughts with regards to the ethics of autonomous vehicles? I mean, this is something that will affect job types. You know, you talked about you know, haulage, for example. I mean, that's surely a market that could be transformed.
Yeah, and it is quite the challenge, and we have a ethics lead in CCAV, and they work quite closely with the academics and other government departments on tackling this and understanding this and understanding some of the questions that the public have and where this is going to go. Jobs is an interesting one. It is commonly the one that is thrown as a negative of, oh, these people are going to lose jobs. But equally, certainly in the haulage sector, under-resourced, high stress, highly impactful on the drivers. It's not something that you can comfortably do your whole life without medical impacts on you. So how do we improve that? How do we benefit that? And remember, we're talking decades. So it's not like tomorrow every HGV driver is going to be unemployed. It is going to be increasing ADAS, advanced driver assistance systems, increasing safety for them, removing some of the burden from them, and then over a period of time, potentially they will not need to be sat in a vehicle driving for 8-12 hours a day, which will be beneficial. There's lots of conversations and questions to be had about autonomous system behaviors. How do you decide a behavior is the right behavior that you want to see? How do you make sure that it is not only safe but considerate of the environment around it? So yeah, lots of questions and lots of research that we're funding and doing with the ecosystem here in the UK, trying to understand some of those questions and tackle some of those, and how do we answer them to the public in a way that is informative and helps them to understand the capability as well.
That's interesting. And obviously, as a developed economy, the UK's approach is going to be different to those in the developing world. How would you envisage the technology being introduced there? I mean, would the steps required be different in the developing markets compared to the West, I guess?
It's a good question, and I'm not sure I have the answer to it, because I was thinking about, I saw it come up on the Q&A list, and I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about, like, if you look at Africa, they've jumped ahead of the West on some of the telecommunication systems. So rather than having landlines first and then improvement, they jumped to 3G and 4G technologies, and they're using mobile phone technologies for banking and all sorts of things, much more than the West are, because they didn't have the legacy capabilities that we had with landlines and things. So I was like, is it going to be something like that? Are they going to be able to jump ahead? But then if you look at the difference between the types of vehicles available in other countries, if you compared India, where a lot more two-wheel vehicles, a lot different use, how do the changes come? And it is one of the big challenges for autonomous vehicle technology as a whole, is there is not one solution that will solve all the problems. It is going to be very different in a UK market, a Europe market, an America market, a South America market, a Middle East market. And it's not going to be for the UK government to tell how somebody else is going to solve the problem. And to an extent, I don't even think it's going to be a UK company on its own being able to roll its capability around the world. They are going to have to partner with local partners to make sure the solution is fit for the problem that location has.
Dr. Nee, what are your thoughts on this? How would developing world markets, how would their approaches differ to markets in the developed world?
Well, yeah, that's really an encouraging way to think about that. It's technically we need to be more open, open data set, open data, open your test experience or test result technically. But for each individual country, the system are different. That it's different settings. Need individual you say law or regulation for this. So yeah, needed to be collaborate. As we mentioned, it's an ecosystem, and technically we need to collaborate together, everyone, to be honest. But for individual country, need the government to have their own regulator for their adoptive system.
Mm-hmm. And is it a case, and David just mentioned the telecoms industry, developing standards, I guess, around this sort of technology? How straightforward will that be to, you know, if you get to the point where your autonomous vehicle, you know, you take your autonomous vehicle from London to Paris, you know, getting those systems to work is going to be quite difficult. You know, how do you think that will pan out?
Well, that's for technical level. Yeah, that can be a standard. That can be a shared framework. But for user experience, especially traveling from one country to another country by autonomous service, well, well, you're a genius. I never think about that. So it's definitely that can have to join the regulation system together. It's a big step. Yeah,
it's good to hear I'm in the wrong industry. David, your thoughts in terms of the, I guess, I mean, international standardization to given, I guess, for the point, you know, as you said, maybe decades down the line at which countries are vehicles are crossing borders.
Yeah, I think certainly we're already starting on some levels of international standardization, and BSI, the British Standards Institute, is working with ISO, SAE and others around the world to make sure that where we can standardize now, let's make sure we're doing so with the organizations, with the ecosystems, and make sure it's sensible. But we are also pushing ahead with our own UK standards to make sure that the UK is developing collegiately and collaboratively. But yeah, I think ARKS is an interesting first example of this. UNECE regulation. So any European country could type approve ARKS, and it will need to be able to operate in any European country. So they will have to be able to abide by all of the different countries' laws and all the different road conditions. And considering the UK drives on the opposite side of the road to everybody else in Europe, that's a good first challenge. Can your system on a single lane, on a multi-lane highway in a single lane, cope whether you're in Germany, France, or the UK? And I think that's a good first challenge.
And not an easy one to solve, I guess, too.
No.
Dr. D, I'm just curious, I guess while we're looking to the future, I was wondering your thoughts as to when do you think we're going to be in a position to operate at the level 5 autonomy globally?
Oh dear me, level 5. Yeah, that's our mission, to be honest. As we just mentioned that point a little bit, for engineering, for researching, our mission is 100%. But in reality, that's not such 100%. Well, probably technically ready can be soon, can be near future. But how to adopting those new things, new autonomous service in our existing system, traffic system, user behavior system. Well, that definitely gonna be a long way to go. Yeah.
David, are you gonna give us a specific year?
I would love to be able to put that bet on. No. And I think for me, the ODD is the operational design domain is massively important. I'm skeptical we'll ever get to a truly SAE level 5 system where any vehicle can operate anywhere in the world. I think the ODD and the difference between those ODDs and the driving environment, the systems around you is going to remain so important. And that's not to say that a future AV company won't be able to sell their vehicles in every single country around the world. But I do think there'll be specific development of those systems in those regions. And somebody driving a AV or being driven by an AV from China all the way across to the UK will be a significant challenge that we're probably not going to see for a good 20 or 30 years.
Wow. Well, we'll maybe go for near-term predictions then for the final question. I mean, I hope everyone attending has enjoyed this conversation as much as I had. But say we're sat here in 5 years' time, what do you think are going to be the key talking points that the autonomous industry will be dealing with then? Dr. Nee, if I could go to you first.
Okay, well, in 5 years, probably my best guess is technically ready, more or less, from the vehicle itself, from the CT systems, CT service systems, or national infrastructure systems, more or less technically ready. But that's going to be loads of verification work needed to be going on. But at least we can see loads of ready-to-use trial or products running in the test bed, or even in some trialed smart highways or trialed road in our daily living.
Okay, David, any thoughts? Technically, things will roughly be solved, as Dr. Nee was saying.
Within 5 years, I would hope that we have quite a good structure for assuring the safety of these systems. So we've got those tests in place. We can look at the modeling and simulation. We can look at the test environments, and we can say, yeah, that system is safe. It's behaving how we expect it to behave. I would expect we will be talking about increased use of ADSs in defined ODDs. So a future version of AUX maybe, where you can hop on a motorway, set your car to go for 5 junctions, and then re-engage in 4.5 junctions time, ready to take back over. And I would like to see, and this is my true hope, that we start seeing some last mile, first mile, small logistics, fully autonomous, just picking up some of those and being commercially viable and being able to deliver on those, and not still being, yep, it's a good idea and we can show it working a little bit, but actually here it is and people are using it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Excellent. I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Just wanted to say thanks to Dr. Nee Zhu from China Mobile International UK and David Webb from CCAV for joining me. Apologies, I know a lot of questions were asked and we didn't get a chance to go through them. I always feel that is a sign of a good and healthy discussion, because there have been so many issues to talk about. I think the three of us could really get stuck into this for the next hour at least. It's a fascinating area, I hope you agree. And just want to thank you again for joining me. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.